Hi, good evening and welcome once again to the Gildarie Freddie Kissoon show. We also coming to you live on YouTube, but you could get that on the Guyanese Critic page. You know, as always, whenever we begin this program, we are going to tell you to be very careful on the roadways. It's just getting kind of crazy every single day. I can't understand for the life of me, why is it that people continue to speed? There's so much expense when you hit up a car. If you take it into the mechanic, if you end up, you could hit somebody, kill them. There's so many things that could go wrong, yet we continue seeing people. Tonight I saw two people just jump the red light along Mandela Avenue, and and the speed and nonsense that's happening on the road. We got to stop that. Start thinking smart. Wherever you are tonight, folks, ladies and gentlemen, welcome once again. I want to say good night to my co-host Freddie Kissoon, who I will hand you over to very shortly, and he will introduce a guest here, and we're going to be speaking largely on things cricket, but of course on any other topics that may be pertinent to the development of Guyana cricket or any sports for that matter of fact. It remains very close to our hearts. Recently, I saw a big debate and big troubles over boxer Miss Ali Cock, and I saw even Nicolette Fernandez, who was somebody that we would know from squash, champion for many, many years, getting into it. We become very emotional whenever there's CPL and any other cricket for that matter of fact. Recently, we saw the West Indies bundled out, I would say kicked out of that T20 World Championships that's happening right now in Australia. We're not feeling good within ourselves. All is not well in our country and in the region when it comes to cricket West Indies. And we have to do a little better than that. Billions of dollars being spent, maybe some not accounted for, and we could say it. Our players not in a very good place, and we have a bunch of talent. There's no such thing like cricket in the West Indies. The party, and you could talk about CPL and what would have been happening here and how much of a joy it is for people. Today something happened, before I hand you over, that every time we have these shows, we will talk about one, two incident that would come to our attention that maybe might have been good and might not have been so good. One of the things that happened today that I heard, that I said, wow, and it came for a real loud condemnation, was the arrest of a attorney at law in Soku. She was there reportedly, and this is coming out of the Attorney General's mouth, Anand, in which he reported that he was told that she was there representing a client, and she was advising her client to be silent, don't speak a word, don't sign anything. And she was arrested for that. The Bar Association, the Women Lawyers Association, and everybody else came in loud condemnation. It is an attack on the legal profession, it is being said. If that is the case, and that it is indeed proven, or if it has indeed happened that the lawyer was advising her client to be silent, don't sign anything, which is a client's right, and of course the attorney is doing a job, then it should be condemned to Soku. 0 points for that. Over to my host, Freddie Kissoon. Right away, sir.
Good evening, wherever you are. Our guest this evening is someone who has 12 years of experience as a director of Cricket West Indies. There is no one in Guyana who is more familiar with the labyrinthine fulcrums on which Cricket West Indians stand. And we should have an output and an outlay of the intricacies of Cricket West Indies in the light of the fiasco of two-time champion of the World Cup having to leave the earliest of all the competing teams. He is also the longest serving member on the apex of the Guyana Cricket Board, second longest serving after Mr. Chetram Singh. This evening, our guest is former Cricket West Indies director, as I told you, for 12 years, and similar duration at the apex of the Guyana Cricket Board, Mr. Anand Sanasie. Anand, welcome, and let me start in a very light manner to our guest. I have known you for more than 30 years, and I want to start with something very hilarious. This thing happened about 20 years, and I had just come to your office in Kingston when it happened. Everyone in Guyana knows there's a well-known patronized cake called tea-ring, a circular cake with the sugar on top and raisins. So Anand, I think, wanted the cake. His kids were at school, they were young that time, they were 20 years ago. So he sent one of his assistant to Bakewell to buy 3 tea rings. And the guy came back, and I was there when the guy came back and said, Bakewell said they don't sell key rings. The guy went at Bakewell and asked for 3 key rings. Having said that, let me repeat, Anand has a long, long history of Guyana. Started his role in Guyana as a lieutenant in the GDF, then went on to business, and then became a larger-than-life figure in Guyanese cricket. So we can start with the first question. Anand, cricket doesn't seem to be in a healthy state. There is a word, harsh word that one can use, comatose.
Well, you can say that. But it had been coming for some time, Freddie. You know, I guess you're referring directly to the fiasco recently and what is happening at West Indies cricket. I've been around there for some time. So someone may say, well, you're part of it. It was always a constant fight. What I noticed at Cricket West Indies, and I'll start there because of the recent fiasco, is that newcomers would come in. Every 2-3 years, you got a rotation going on. And the same mistakes were being made over and over again. So as someone who was around about 2 years ago when I decided that I would have gone for the top job there, during my campaigns through the region, I said the same thing. I said we keep repeating the same thing over and over again. We will keep repeating and having the same mistakes. And we're not concentrating on what I would term what is happening at the grassroots level throughout the region in cricket. This recent administration probably made the greatest of mistakes, and I've been saying
this is the current administration?
Yes, this recent administration has made the mistake of trying to think that you can clean slate once and then move on with everything. And there was some progress being made, and they reversed it when they came into office. For example, they went on sacking of the entire management team, which was about to go to a World Cup, right? And you would know the history of how miserable that was. Only beaten by this recent fiasco, right? So, Cricket West Indies needs to address these issues, and they need to start back at the grassroots level in the territories. Now, I observed recently, and I shouldn't say recently, apparently every time a coach doesn't do well, they refer to the territorial structure. Well, I've always been saying that we need to start there, we need to strengthen the territorial structure. That happened to some extent when the Cameron administration brought in the franchise system, right? And recently, the current administration has not been paying too much attention to that too. And I'll give them some leeway there because COVID came in and a few things happened and so on. But unless these matters are, this whole cricket situation is addressed in a holistic way, starting within the territories and so on. I remember 4 years ago we had what we call clusters, grassroots clusters, throughout the Caribbean. Guyana had 16 clusters, right? West Coast, Demerara, Georgetown, East Bank, West Demerara, and the quarantine was split up and so on. And under 13, under 15, and under 17, core players, like 50 in each age group level, came like 2 weekends for the month, they were in those clusters, and the coaches were paid for and so on. And gradually, this administration, it started under this current administration.
In Guyana?
No,
Cricket West Indies, Mr. Skelly.
Throughout the Caribbean. But it began somewhere along the time when the new CEO came in. That's Johnny Grave, the current CEO,
Yeah.
right? In my opinion, when that CEO was hired, he then started to learn what this Caribbean whole cricket setup and structure was about. He came out of an English system, and he wasn't too versed in being a CEO. He was more like a player representative. He was in that area of the cricket administration. When he came in, it took him some time to kind of learn what was happening within the structure. It took him some time to go around the Caribbean and so on. So while the current administration felt that they should centralize a lot of things in Antigua and manage this cricket out of Antigua, it is my humble opinion that you can't manage all of this cricket out of Antigua. The cricketers are produced in the territories, and we have to concentrate more resources in those territories. During my time, for most of my time at the board, all the territories got for the managing of the cricket was $100,000 a year. I had a resolution passed and moved around to the head of each territory to move that up to $300,000, and that began probably 2 years or 3 years ago. I would have come out from the Guyana Cricket Board now, getting close to 2 years. So I'm hoping that the benefits that they get from that, can, go across the country and assist a little. I do not know what's the current financial position of Cricket West Indies, but I understand it's not very good. But we can start there. I'm not going to address what is happening in Guyana as yet, because we've been moving backwards here also.
Jesus. Anand, you didn't paint a good portrait of the present Cricket West Indies leadership. I'm asking you bluntly now, is that leadership in serious decline? Is that leadership lacking inspiration? Is that leadership lacking leadership? And thus we could expect further deterioration in West Indian cricket?
Well, the results certainly gives you a picture that is not good. While I cannot tell you what is exactly happening within at this point in time, most of the leadership that are there currently would have been around when I was at the board. There's something I would like to say though, is that while we talk about the directorship and we talk about the presidency of West Indies Cricket Board and so on, there's a management staff, there's a senior management staff that is always there. The directors come and go, the presidents come and go and so on. And the hierarchy is there. You have the CEO, you have Jimmy Adams, the director of cricket, you have Roland Holder is there, and a few others would always be there. So sometimes when we speak about West Indies cricket and we talk about the directorship, people come and go there, but what is going on in that central management setup that you have also needs to be looked at, because you have to judge people based on performance. Now the players may not be performing on the field, but their performance is also judged by those that are making the rules and regulations, those that are making the pertinent decisions on how they do it. I'm not going to say that the players are not responsible. Everyone is responsible. It's a holistic thing. But certainly, Mr. Skerritt has not done a good job. I can tell you that. And I'm not satisfied with it. It appears as though the region is not satisfied with it. I would say that Mr. Skerritt would like to say the nice things in flowery language, which may be politically correct. but it's not necessarily correct to improve in our cricket. The franchise system, I keep saying this, the franchise system that was set up in Cricket West Indies meant that we would have played a lot more regional cricket. And if it is professionalized as it was supposed to be, then the standard of our cricket should have gone up a little. And you keep hearing that that has its own issues, how you bring them in and so on. And don't set aside the Caribbean politics. It has its own life within everything of the administration of cricket in the region.
So politics is involved in a sport that it should not be involved in. The world frowns on politics intruding in sports.
Yes, the world frowns on it, the ICC frowns on it and so on, but in the Caribbean, I can't tell you that they don't exist. It's always there. It's the underlying thing. You had, when the Dave Cameron administration was in there, some CARICOM prime ministers were banging at the board all the time. It was as if Dave Cameron solely was responsible for the performance. Everyone was responsible for the performance, the players, the management, and everybody. But we were seeing things happening. We won World Cups. We were not embarrassed. This is the lowest it has ever been, getting knocked out in a qualifier in the history. I don't know how much
being beaten by Scotland and Ireland.
Well, it's not who beat you, but being in the qualifier, because a lot of associate teams are coming through. They're getting stronger. A lot of resources are being put into their cricket. That's another thing. In the region, we need to get government help, government involvement. And yes, if government put money into the cricket, you account for it, you have to. But across the region, except for Barbados and Trinidad, I am not sure how much money you actually get out of central government in any of the territory. They assist with facilities and so on. But the structure in Barbados would always keep them ahead of all of us, because Barbados cricket, the finances is being provided for because of a system the government put in place through earnings from the lottery. In Trinidad, the National Sports Company provides some sort of financing for not only cricket, for other sports and so on. And they have an elite athlete program that they pay into. So imagine a Barbados. And by the way, when Guyana won 5 regional tournaments during my time, Barbados was runner-up all 5 times. But Barbados can plan on the 4th of January for their entire year of cricket, because the financing is provided. It's all there. And you take, say, Guyana or Jamaica, because they're in kind of a similar situation. The cricket board has to raise all of its funding, right?
You don't get money from central funding like Trinidad and Tobago. Don't get it?
No, you don't get it. And
that's a revolution, Gildarie. You need that?
You've hit on several points there, and I want to get it. You're a businessman, Mr. Sanasie, and I like to look at figures. If you ask me what are some of the statistics in cricket in the whole world, I might not be able to tell you, but I rather believe that the West Indies cricket, West Indies and the rest of organizations similar. They're in it for a couple of things. One, they have some objectives to the people, to whoever they report into. They have to provide facility, matches, and they have to do organization and so on. At the end of the day, you have to run it like a business. I'm asking you, sir, whether you believe, as a former official within Cricket West Indies, that it makes sense with the fact that you just said Barbados and Trinidad are given some money in some ways or form for the development of cricket. Does it make sense for us to continue Guyana as part of Cricket West Indies? We have money now, we have oil.
Yeah, thanks for that. I hope enough trickle down to sports. Building the facilities and so on is part of it. But I think if I'm to take Guyana, and I did do a Facebook post about go in it alone as an associate. If Cricket West Indies continues in this downward spiral it's going, it may be best for Guyana to think about it. And I had done some research into that and how long it takes, because in the associate level, you have to start at the bottom. And then there has to be some initial financing until you can tap into the ICC associate members financing. There's a separate financing you will get. You will then, we have a lot of structures in place, the coaching, umpiring structure and all of that, which would be requirements. There's some benchmarks you have to meet, and then every year you move a tier up and whatever. The benefit in that is that because we are established already, and with probably 2 more stadium in Guyana, say you have 3 or 4, then you can host, associate, and so on. And you can generate other things because it's spin-off effect of having the games and so on. It's a 5-6 year cycle, and you get up there probably in the 7th or 8th year. That is how all of these associates may have come to. You have to keep winning at every tier to go up. There's a table that can actually teach you all of that. West Indies cricket is not going to recover overnight. And I'm going to tell you what. Let me go back a little in history. Everyone would say, but India is there, Australia is there, and England is there. Other than the huge population and the following and the economic might, and all of that. 30, 40 years ago when West Indies was doing well, they went to these territories and make those territories rich and improved and so on. We didn't plan properly. We didn't plan what's going to happen in the future, what's the development to put in facilities into place. In India, the cricket board basically built the stadium across India and hand it over to the provincial, whatever they call them there, and they would manage it and do everything. But the vastness and the whole economy there, the market value of everything is quite different. In the Caribbean, because we didn't do that back then, we were always going to be struggling to get up, because you make money when you're winning.
Mm-hmm.
You get sponsors when you're winning. And sponsors, for example, the current Cricket West Indies team does not have a main sponsor. When you watch on the shirt, you used to see Digicel or Sandals or whatever. You see nothing on it now.
So there's money lost there.
There's money lost there. So let me just give you an example. When Digicel was there, you would have been getting $9-10 million a year US, right?
Wow.
I think the Sandals one was probably valued at 4 or 5 in kind, because they would offer the hotels and all of that. That's no longer there. They lose a lot of money in the renegotiation of the broadcast rights. Well, internationally, that's an issue, right? A lot of the smaller cricketing nation would have found some problem there, but I think West Indies cricket took too long to actually go to market and get that done. And the current structure that they have done with their broadcast rights is piecemeal selling it. It's difficult to manage, and you have to do production, which we never had to do before in the previous cycle. Production meaning you spend $5 million US a year to produce these games. Television production, you guys would understand. It takes a lot of money, and then you sell those rights to the television stations across the world. So then, if you take on someone in South Africa and someone in Bangladesh, you're then managing that, right? So I think the decision about that is also questionable. But Cricket West Indies, if you do make a lot of changes and do all the things I'm talking about, and if you have the money to do it, you can turn it around in less than 3 to 5 years. You cannot turn it around.
And this is one of the most interesting things coming out of these interviews. This is a cricket mad nation. I'm telling you, there are 2 things I did not know. I am not as cricket mad as so many other Guyanese. I did not know, for all the years I'm living in this country, that central government doesn't put money into the cricket board as part of the development of cricket. I didn't know that. I don't know if Gildarie could say if he knows that, but that's a revelation. The second thing is, their lack of sponsorship, is that now? If that is now, if now before they always had sponsorship and you don't have one now, isn't that a reflection of marketing incompetence?
It could also
Part
people
of
lose
Cricket West
faith,
Indies?
Freddie. It could also be that people lose faith.
You're talking Cricket West Indies?
Yeah. They don't have us. Did that ever happen before? That's money you're losing big time.
I don't think we've ever found ourselves so much out of it. I'm trying to think back, at least in my time.
We always had a sponsorship.
You always had a sponsor, and then you always had one standing by, for the next one to come in. But remember, branding, large corporate entities do not associate with failure. They do not associate with losing. So if you're not going to be winning on the field of play, you're going to have a serious problem getting sponsorship, right? We had started to move up when we won the World Cups and so on, and then we had started to grow the regional cricket. Because unless we could grow this regional cricket and make it vibrant and get sponsorship on those and so on, because remember, I'll give you a general idea. Whatever is you're earning, at least this was negotiated about 5 years back with the Players Union, because when I got into Cricket West Indies, it was a constant fight with players. We had 2 days of meeting, and sometimes it was just talking about the problem with players and court matters and so on. There was a unique guy then, a guy named Dinanath Ramnarine from Trinidad. He's unique in his own way, right? Everything was a fight, everything was court and so on. During the tenure of Julian Hunt, I served through 3 presidents. Julian Hunt made him a director on the board. And he couldn't fight while he was on the board, so he left the board so he can continue to fight outside.
There's Ramnath.
Yes, Ramnath.
He was a players' representative or something?
Yeah, he was a players' union representative, but everything was adversarial. And I could remember probably going through about 2 years, 3 years of that, until there was some sort of resolution. It was during Cameron's tenure in office that they had a new president, Wavell Hines, of the Players Union.
Yeah, from Jamaica.
From Jamaica, and then there was some reasonable compromise, I would say. And so instead of spending millions in court matters and lawyers and whatever, those things came to a halt, and there was reasonable relationship. Well, I should say good relationship between the Players Union and the board. And so they sat down and they worked out an MOU. Listen, 27 or 29, I stand corrected, percent of the board's earnings would go to players, to payment of players and players' affairs, whatever that is, including assisting with office space and helping the Players Union to have an office, as if you would have a union, a unionized thing in Guyana or anyway, you assist with all of that. And so at that point in time, things settled down and we were able to work out how we roll out this franchise setup, and instead of 15 players getting all of this money, right, regional players start to earn. And that was the turnaround. It was happening. You had 105, sometimes 115, depending on how many Cricket West Indies contracted. So that same money was spread around, and so regional cricketers started to get paid. Then regional boards, because that was a Guyana Cricket Board. I had written up a 5-year plan around that time that they established the franchise system. And we said that, listen, for the first time, we would be able to finance and pay these cricketers, and they will have an obligation to train, to go through fitness tests and to do everything, because you're now paying them. That's your local regional cricketers that are going to play in the regional cricket, not the test players and so on. And we set up a plan, a fitness regiment and everything. I'm talking Guyana now, right? And we said, well, in 5 years, at least in the back end, in 2 years, we will start to win and do stuff. But Year one, we won, and then we continued to win throughout. You know how we were able to do that? We were able to do that because the structure changed, and we got money then to pay these cricketers and to set up professional coaching setup around them with physios and so on. And that was reflected throughout the region. Some region were slow in picking it up and to get it going, but Guyana did well.
You know what I like about this interview? This interview should add some dimensions to people's reflection on what happened with the World Cup. Because what he is saying here is that all is not well at the Guyana cricket, West Indian cricket, administration. And now we tend to be so livid and then angry with these players. But when you find out that there's no central funding in Guyana, when you find out that it's about 10 million American dollar lost to Cricket West Indies, then you have a gloomy picture. It must affect the players, Anand.
No, before he answers that, let me tell you what amazes me. I read today, Elon Musk of Tesla, the guy, they were able to buy over, I think it's Twitter, the social media platform.
For 4 billion.
The first business that he did is go in and fired a couple of the top managers, including, I think, the CEO of Twitter. And I think they said they're going to put him back to Donald Trump. Yes. What is interesting in that, while it's not the same context, I can't understand for the life of me, after that nonsense that happened in Australia, why didn't somebody find the conscience to just resign, a couple of them resign? Because this is something, it's a reflection of you. But you're sitting here, you're on a board of directors, and you haven't delivered to the people, to the shareholders. And you're still sitting there. Why aren't the shareholders not confident to resign?
We blaming those boys. We blaming those boys for early exit. And Cricket West Indies doesn't have a sponsor, which means millions of American dollars aren't coming into. And we blaming those boys. So if the coach must resign, well, I think he said.
They must resign. They do the right thing.
If the coach right. What about Skerritt and the rest of them, Alan?
Well,
Graves said he's not resigning.
Well, let me touch on that. Graves said he's not resigning, and I think Graves actually learned on the job at Cricket West Indies when he came in, and not everything he did is bad. If you understand me, he understands certain aspect of it. The financial aspect, I think he was limited. I hope by now that he understands more of it, and this I can tell you because I experienced that. Johnny Graves said he would not resign. I read that article, and I remember there was a story carried by ESPN, I think the cricketer. I think the reporter is George Dubell, a friend of his, because usually he slants a lot of articles to help him out. He carried an article that Johnny Graves was in the running for the ECB job as CEO. That's the England Cricket Board, right? What would have happened if Johnny had gotten that job? He would have gone, I guess, because it's England, he's going home. So it means that if that is true, and I read it on ESPN, I stand corrected if it's not true. Johnny Graves is applying for another job, using Cricket West Indies as a stepping stone, right? And the fiasco happened, and he tell you bluntly, I'm not resigning. The day if I was at the Cricket West Indies, and I'm not right now, and I understand that Johnny Graves applied for another job, I would have told him, you have to go. Give him the current fiasco. And let me tell you what. I said something publicly. There was a guy, I think he was based in South Africa when we hired him, Richard Pybus. In all my time at Cricket West Indies, I've never come across anyone as professional as he is. I think he has a background in teaching, and he's a professional coach. He's a man that Skerrit sent home immediately when he came. As an administrator of Guyana cricket, he was there when we established the franchise system. And I personally learned a lot in the whole structure of how you're going to bring these players up from the bottom there to get them up to a certain level from that guy. And if that guy was around, and at the time when he was fired, he was actually the coach, because he was director of cricket, and then he had left because of pressure coming from within the political setup of this board. And Dave Cameron realized that Jimmy Adams, who had replaced him, was overwhelmed with the job. And that's my interpretation. Jimmy is a very nice guy, professional guy. But sometimes in dealing with West Indies cricket, you have to be a bit more forceful to get things done. And I expatriate, someone from outside of the region tend to not be as insular.
I want us to move to Guyana cricket because time is going and there's a lot about Guyana cricket. Anand, I just remember you saying something. I don't know the facts. But you said under your jurisdiction, Guyana won 5 consecutive tournaments.
4-day tournaments.
Right. I know now Guyana is winning nothing. Under 17, under 19, senior, all categories of women cricket. Guyana is winning nothing and has not been winning nothing for 2 years now.
That's true.
What is happening there? Nothing. We haven't won anything.
Or we are very low down or at the bottom of the table. Let me tell you something, Freddie.
Should head rolls? Head rolls?
Well, I don't know who will roll it because the current administration was ushered in, and I don't want to get again into the politics of it. Because let me just give you an idea. The 50-over team has just left these shores today or yesterday and gone, right? Let me just give you something. I see the president met with the board the other day and he told them to think outside of the box, which is very good. They need to really think outside of the box.
No, but those people were elected, man.
Yeah, no,
those people were elected.
Let's put it that way. I'm not getting into that part. However they were elected or selected, that's not the issue. I don't want to
there was a cricket ombudsman and there was an election.
Yeah, there's a different cricket ombudsman now too, right? Because that ombudsman has been replaced. But let me go back to if you really serious, because I saw you talk about Nicolette's letter and the other letters. I saw a cricketer, a female cricketer or former cricketer wrote a letter too about the treatment of women cricketers, Akase Thompson, right? And it's alarming, right? Because I didn't follow that matter as close. But let me give you this example. You want to win a tournament. You play one weekend of cricket in Guyana. You call it intercounty because they have shut down the franchise system that we had set up with 8 teams across the country playing each other on a round-robin basis in all 3 formats. That has been shut down. I see recently they say they might start it back. But you play intercounty and the teams are playing 3 matches, I think 1 washout. So it's a weekend of cricket. And you select a team. I don't know what the data used to select the team, what's the fitness standard that they use or anything, because you can't really bring people together for 1 weekend in a whole year and pick a team for
not enough cricketers.
Not enough cricket, right? Not enough at all. But then the coach that won 5 tournaments and was there for 7 or 8 years, you send him home immediately and you put 2 new coaches in, right? No, I would have thought...
You're solving the problem.
No. I would have thought that if you need to get rid of this coach, bring a younger man in or someone you think that you want to give the job to. I'm just saying I would have chosen a younger coach. And then you give him 2 years in there and then you send that man out. That man was just told, you're dismissed. You then put a manager in who is physically challenged. Let me use that word. He's physically challenged. What we were doing is ensure that the manager was a coach So he assisted, right? You do not have a full-time physio, and strength and conditioning in sports happens in the off-season. Because when you go in there, it's just if someone has a niggle or whatever, you look after it. So you do not have a full-time strength and conditioning coach. We had brought in Neil Barry Jr. We bought out, we paid for his public service contract, right? And so that we could have had the best. I understand he's now coaching the Bahrainian team. Because this is a good guy, I would have held on to him. I knew he went up. Cricket West Indies had given him a job to move up during my time, because I negotiated salaries and was trying to push him there. But he came back. We're not trying to hold on to him, but he's with the Barbados CPL team, and I think he's with the Barbados Pride during this tournament. He's not with our team. So your management team now, I don't think is prepared. So your team is not prepared, and your management team is not prepared. So you're going there to lose.
Prepare for that.
But I can't have facts in you. I can't have your facts are correct. This man, as a coach, win 5 tournaments, and then you fired him. He must have committed something. He must have done something. He won. A winning coach is never sacked. Is there something?
You know, I thought he did something, so I called him when I saw the story.
Would you have to see you beaten around the bush?
No, Isa Crandon, right?
Okay.
So I called him. I said, Isa, this is shocking to me. What happened? He said he doesn't know. He was just told that he's no longer the coach.
Thank you very much. What is the situation? Why? I can't understand the logics of what happened to Shamron Hettimaya of not getting to Australia. Does not make sense to me. That does not add up. A man was told that you have to travel on Monday, or travel, sorry, and he couldn't make it. He says, well, he's been told the next day that the next time that you have to travel is this day. He did not turn up. That is suicide. What is the story?
Well, I can only answer that based on what I would have read or the statement issued by Cricket West Indies. I note, and I was looking forward to Shimran's side of the story to be made public. For whatever reason, he didn't. My immediate reaction was, if you are not going to turn up for your travel arrangement, then you should be replaced. That was my first reaction.
Of course, I agree.
Right? But I later learned that the World Cup was starting sometime down.
Oh.
We, even the qualifiers. So let me just say this. If I had to deal with the situation, I would have gotten to Shimran to find out. As the Guyana Cricket Board, I'm not talking West Indies. And to find out what is the issue, I would have intervened at Cricket West Indies level to see what could have been done. And remember, I am not aware of all of the facts, right? But I think knowing now that the World Cup wasn't starting, my impression was a couple of days and we had to play and we are in the qualifiers. Later on, I realized that it was sometime down. I think the situation was badly handled, and again, I'm saying that because I don't have the facts. I'm just talking what I read, and Shimran never gave his
So
side.
that story is the real reason, because I don't believe that is the reason. A man logically would not miss a flight or miss 2 flights, could not make a flight, knowing that that is the World Cup that you go into, or the World Championships. I thought it does not make sense, and then there's not any offer of a proper explanation
But
to the people who follow him.
But he hasn't given it. We can only speculate. I mean, he also should.
But why would you not
should
want
come
your
out and say-
credibility? Your credibility is there. I'm not hating on Shamron.
No, but he has to say, look,
I'm just talking, the story is not out there.
But he has to put the story out there. He makes it difficult. He makes his fans difficult to support him because he has an obligation to his fans. I think when a sportsman and a sportswoman is badly treated, and they feel they're badly treated, they speak out. And no example is greater than the women, professional women, the national team of the United States, women footballers. They say what is the problem when they're mistreated. So one will hope that he says that. He gives an explanation. Anand, you think Nicholas Pooran is a good T20 captain? You think he's partially to be blamed for the fiasco? He has that experience. He plays in the IPL.
I like him as a player. And if I'm picking a team, I think he'll be in my team. As far as captaincy is concerned, I think it was a bit premature. He's capable, but when you look around, the cupboard is bare, you know. Look at Cricket West Indies, look at the team selected, and who you think should be the replacement. He's a very good T20 player. He has a good cricketing brain as far as I know. And I would pick him in the team. As to the captaincy, I think he should have been given a little more time before being burdened with that.
I presume the holds true for the Amazon Warrior team too?
Well,
I know that's franchise, two different formats.
yeah, it's different format, but it depends on you coming down lower now and you might have a few players, because that's a lower level of cricket than going way up there. For me, he captained the Amazon Warriors team, but not this year, right?
Mm-hmm.
Remember that? He was not the captain of the Trinidad outfit, the TKR outfit this year. But as I said, I would have given him a little more time to cement himself and get a little more experience. But it is what it is, and leadership qualities is kind of scarce in the region. You have to admit that. I was really hoping that Shimran would have been one coming through, but obviously, I think with fitness and all of those things, Shimran need to pull himself together.
But Anand, could you discuss something? I'm throwing out a theory here. Is it possible that he's very popular, globally popular West Indian cricket? The future is assured. And if you, from what you have, the canvas you have just painted, they could make a handsome living and carve out a future without having to play for the West Indies. Now, Hetmyer is assured of IPL next year. Hetmyer is assured of CPL next year. And then there's a South African Premier League that is starting, and the South Africans say it's going to be as close as IPL. So these people, future, are assured. So is it possible there's a psychological limitation to patriotism? And they say, look, we go and spend so much time with West Indian cricket. What are we getting? I mean, and then one of the things I kind of support these people is every human being, especially when they have children, wants to have a future. When these guys reach 30, 32, and IPL don't pick them anymore, you know, and CPL don't pick them anymore, what happened to their future? So why not make hay while the sun shines? And the casualty is West Indian cricket.
I know, been there already. When the T20 league started throughout the world, especially in India, the IPL started, West Indies was the territory that faced that problem from the inception, because our players were these flamboyant kind of cricketers and they were snapped up, they went to India. I don't have a problem with players going in the international arena to earn money. But I'll ask you, how was that player prepared and came up through the system to reach there? There was a lot of discussion on this, right? And T20 leagues popping up all over the world. And by the way, the one in South Africa is actually an extension of the IPL. All of those teams are owned by IPL franchises, and you will see it's basically, you have to understand the control that Indian cricket has in world cricket. They own it, right?
Including CPL.
Well, it started to happen. The only thing is that the players are not participating, but the franchises are being bought up gradually. The one in South Africa is basically an extension of the IPL. And so you will see how that will evolve. That is another side of it. But going back to the players, in my mind, ICC has already created a niche for the IPL. That's 3 months out of the cricket calendar for the year. And it might be 3 months of the best season for West Indies cricket. And unless you get to play something else within that time, everybody running down there. And once you develop a player and the players start to score and whatever, they're going to be snapped up. That's something we have to live with. I think the answer to that is that Cricket West Indies have to early decide, well, how are we going to deal with this? Is there, and by the way, Cricket West Indies earn from when the players play IPL, there's a small percentage that goes to them, which is supposed to be shared with the club that produced them and the territory that they come from.
That is happening?
There was a lot of outstanding money when I left the board that should have been paid to Guyana because of Hetimaya, Kimopal, and Rutherford. Hetimaya being the most significant one, with the club Young Warriors being owed probably 5-6 million, because I would have known about 2019 earnings, so you would have had 2020 and 2021, which would have been exponentially more than that. I don't know if it was paid. In fact, when I left the board, we had like about 400,000-500,000 US in receivables from Cricket West.
Let's talk CPL and Cricket West Indies and tourism. What is interesting about this recent CPL thing? It has reinforced what the government has been saying, that CPL has huge potential, tourism potential. We've seen the numbers, the hotels being filled and the numbers being packed into the stadium. I don't think there's another territory which could probably boast those kind of figures. I'm wondering, when Stanford started T20 back in the mid-2000s, whether you would have had an idea what it would have evolved into. Everybody's catch on so fast. Why did the Cricket West Indies not look probably to CPL, which is right within the region, and said, look, let us form some kind of collaboration, let us see how we could get something out of this? Did anybody contemplate anything like that? Was it discussed at Cricket West Indies?
Yeah, you have to understand something. That CPL, that whole T20 tournament, is Cricket West Indies T20 tournament. They sold the licensing right to CPL and whoever was the owner at that time. There's another whole story in itself, how that evolved. For, I think it was 1.250 million US, right? Before that, Cricket West Indies had their own tournament, which they were growing. And when they grew the tournament to a certain level, that was when they sold it. About that time was one of the, Guyana was not allowed to attend meetings at Cricket West Indies, was one of the many injunctions against the board. So during that time when they signed up this whole CPL deal,
Guyana was not part of it.
Guyana was not part of the negotiation. We came back, when myself and Mr. Gildarie attended meeting back again, after we got past one of the court matters, the injunctions, that deal was already signed. It was there on the table, and it was there. But remember, you signed a 30-year deal, whatever it was, for that amount of money. I think there's also some earning $360,000 for development, which is paid by the franchises. That's Warriors and TKR.
This is US dollars you talk.
That is US dollars. That also goes to Cricket West Indies. I would have suggested that should have gone to the territory to promote T20 cricket, but that didn't happen. So it is West Indies Cricket Board, or Cricket West Indies as it's called now, that actually negotiated that, and the CPL came in. What I can tell you is that it was expected that CPL would have brought sponsors and brought things from outside of the region. But CPL has now capitalized on.
And I have a very important question I want to ask you about Cricket West Indies. We see it at the CPL level and the Cricket West Indies level as well. Is it our impression, our perception, and it could be wrong, that Trinidad seems to have a heavily, or Cricket West Indies seem to be heavily biased towards Trinidad, especially when you look at the number of commentators that they have here, when you look at the number of players within the West Indies cricket team and so on. Is that a perception, or is there a lot of control that's happening, a lot of behind the scenes that would maybe give Trinidad a big part of Cricket West Indies? Is it a perception, or is that what it is?
Well, it depends on who's selected, and the selectors who were selecting them until recently. Clyde Watts, Clive Lloyd, Roger Harper were chairman of the selection panel. They're all Guyanese. So if you ask me,
They were the ones.
they were the ones selecting the Trinidadians. I don't know. For me, Trinidadians were being selected at the T20 level a lot. For the test level, I think it was more evenly divided. What I was reminded again the other day that Alvin Kalitran once told us that the West Indies only did well when there were at least 3 Guyanese batsmen in the side. Look back in history.
Time is going, and there's an interesting thing on. I don't know. I don't want to say it has a colonial explanation. There is, but correct me. You have the Pakistani board, you have the English board, you have the Indian board, and we had a board. Australia was Cricket Australia. Why did they change it from the West Indian Cricket Board to Cricket West Indies? What was the psychological and sociological or cultural explanation behind that? The other territories, Sri Lankan Cricket Board, you have the Pakistani Cricket Board.
It's just rebranded, maybe?
It's rebranding because then you start to, back in the days you never
Is
used
it
to
copy from Australia?
No, they never used to commercialize it, right? So everything is commercial now. Cricket is a big business, right? So they started to change. For example, the New Zealand changed, and so they move away from that. And a board, what does the board mean? Is it the cricket or is it cricket board?
Mm-hmm.
I mean the word board, right? Is it the cricket we're talking about or the board? The Skerritt and his merry men.
Be careful with
Somebody
that.
asked a
Be careful with
question.
that.
Somebody
Be careful
asked
with
us to
that.
ask you a question. Why was Darren Sammy and team, a couple of others, fired after the 2016 World Cup when they would have won? Was it 2016 it was? Mm-hmm. Why were they fired? That's what somebody's asking. I don't know if there's any context to that.
After the World Cup,
They would have won the World Cup.
that was in India, right?
Yes.
Yeah, when Darren Sammy made a famous speech,
Right.
right? And lambasted the board, remember?
Yes. And so that was a reason.
Well, he was replaced as captain. I didn't agree with it. I was at the board at that time. I didn't agree with it, but then he followed up later with some comments and so. Let me tell you something, and it's my belief that when you're the captain, you represent the region,
right.
and you have to have a certain decorum, and you have to be there. You can have your grievance, and he might have had legitimate ones, but again, I thought that one director referred to them as the prima donnas. These Super League players, as you were referring to, sometimes feel that they arrive at a stage where the board that they come from, and Cricket West Indies or wherever they come from, really doesn't matter anymore. They would have achieved that level. And I always liked Sammy. Sammy represented the board a lot during some times when Ram Narain was in charge of the players, and there was a lot of strike, there was a lot of problem. And Sammy came around from the other side. And those got his own thing. I also felt around that time it should have been Saran who should have been the captain.
Time is going. I want to, for the researchers who are going to research cricket in the future, who are some of the pleasant players in West Indian cricket that you think made a lasting impression on you as a director of Cricket West Indies, your interaction with them? And so if you was to write a book, you would say, I like these players, and these players globally were great people.
Present players.
Past and present, if you could rattle out of your head. Across the region, not only Guyanese. You would know the Guyanese more.
a player who's currently playing, I was a former captain, made a significant impression on me, the way he carries himself onto today.
Well, you're not going to name him?
Is Jason Holder. And outside of Jason Holder, I think the professionalism in Shivnarine Chandrapal always impressed me. And that was why when West Indies Cricket Board had that fiasco and he had to come off, and it was Simmons who actually caused that, I can say that now. We took in Chandrapal and made him manager, coach.
What situation that would cause? I can't remember. Do you remember that? Why he was?
When Chandrapal requested to have a final game,
Uh-huh.
and he was told no. Right?
Oh yeah, see, I think he was retiring, right?
Well, they retired him, let me put it that way. But he had agreed that I want one last game. I saw the messages and so on. And the president and agreed at the board. Except one director, one single director.
Phil Simmons?
No, Phil Simmons was the coaching level then. And I would not get too more into it because I was reported on that same matter after I spoke out to the Ethics Committee of Cricket West Indies because of speaking out about it.
There's a great cricket icon. He made a triple century in Test cricket. His record is fantastic. Chris Gayle. Did you interact with him? Do you like him? Do you think he's a likable person?
Yeah. Anyone who interacts with Chris Gayle would like him. He's a simple, easygoing guy. Yes, I did interact with him. But not to the extent that I had in-depth conversations and so on, like I would have had with Jason and Shivnarine Chandrapal and so on.
So that's it, ladies and gentlemen. It's been pretty interesting, very short though. I wish we could continue. We're having some insights, and Mr. Anand Sanasie, lots of institutional knowledge there with cricket in the very thick of things when it comes to Cricket West Indies. And the cricket means a lot. It brings our people together. It entertains us. It makes money for our country. Things happen when cricket comes to Guyana and across the West Indies. I know that it's Cricket World Cup right now, the T20 that is happening. We're hoping to see some fireworks here, but it's never the same without the West Indies present. We want to be really rooting for our home team, Freddie Kissoon, and so we headed into a weekend now. We want to say take care on our roadways wherever you are. Have a pleasant weekend, and I would want to say thank you very much to our co-host Freddie Kissoon, and of course to our guest Anand Sanasie, businessman and cricket enthusiast and former board member of Cricket West Indies. So wherever you are, have a pleasant rest of the night, safe weekend. Be back with you on Monday. Thank you very much.